Okay, we're going to look at making the rubber foot for the model button maker. So we're going to start with creating a circle and filleting the edge around that. So we'll use the measurements that are given on the document here to create that. So first we're going to draw that circle, the right size. We're going to extrude it out to the appropriate dimension. And then we're going to fillet one of the edges to the proper size. So that's how we're going to start this. And most things you want to look at the large shape first, get those dimensions in there. And the next part of that will be getting the remaining parts of this, which is going to include first this hole. And we can see it's got some special descriptions on it. So that means we're going to use the hole command, and this particular mark here, that sort of squared off U shape, indicates that the type of hole that we want to do. So we're going to go use the hole command, and we're going to find the right shape, which in this case is the counter bore here. And so it's looking for a top diameter for the large shape that it's doing. It's looking for a depth of that hole and then a diameter of the remaining part of the hole. So those are the measurements that we're going to be looking for here. The depth of the diameter of the large top part, the depth of that using the depth notation there, that little arrow pointing down, and finally our diameter of the whole hole, and it tells us it goes all the way through. So those are the dimensions that we're going to put in there. To put this on, we're going to use the concentric setting on the hole command. When we start that, put it on a plane, and then we need the concentric reference, which is some circle on the larger shape. So as you scroll around, you'll find eventually the right size for what we want. And then you can put in the appropriate measurements where those belong. So you should have your hole cut all the way through, and then there's going to be a larger depression that is part of the way through. This is used for putting a screw in there so that the screw head or bolt head doesn't stick out the top. Alright, so the remainder of this requires us to shell this out, and we can see that on the diagram that there is a shell command here with an appropriate measurement, and then a few other lines that we need to do and we need to make there. So we're going to use the shell command first to create that. It's real important that we get the right measurement in there. If we put the wrong measurement, the shell command won't work. So make sure that you're reading the document to get the correct measurement. Now we've shelled that out, but we still have the cross beams, cross braces of that we need to make. And we see that those are going all four directions here, and they are shown their distance apart for how thick one of these is. Now, there's a couple different ways we can do this. You can make this at each spot. You can make it as one and do a circular pattern. It's up to you on how you go about doing that, but make sure you get this measurement, and it's going to be centered off of a center line. So we're going to use some construction lines to make that happen. So I'm going to create a new sketch, make sure that I get it on the right plane here so that it's sticking out. I'm going to start with a construction line just to lay this out. And then I think I'll use project geometry to make sure that I get the right part of this as well so I can see where things are. I'm going to turn off my construction line and then use the line command again and draw this in. Now this one's going to be out a little ways, We don't want it to start there on that line. We need to start a little ways out. So we'll try that again. And that's a little bit better there. And then one on the other side as well. Now that one's looking a little bit off, so I'm going to use my constraints here to make sure that these are parallel to each other and that they're also parallel with this center line. I'm going to use the arc to close off this shape here and just sort of make sure that it matches out with the hole as it is. Now the rest of this also needs to fill in a little bit, so I'm actually going to put another circle on here. Goes out to that instead of the construction lines, and we'll use that whole thing as part of our extrusion. So let's give that a try. We're going to finish sketch here. We're going to extrude that. We're going to go the opposite direction, but we don't want it to be a cut. We want it to be solid. And the distance we're going to use is all along that. That will match up just fine along there. So that looks pretty good there. Now I didn't put the right dimensions in. Make sure you get the right dimensions in and you center that. Then we can use the circular pattern to create the rotation of that around whole with the proper number of those. And that should fill that in. Alright, so that's looking pretty good there. And now we want to save that as rubber foot and make sure that's in our button maker folder. Make sure you get all the right dimensions on here, even if I didn't use them or say them. They're on the document. You can find them on there.